Oh man, I love these types of videos. Daniel Jeremiah drops his mock draft 3.0. He has the New York Jets making a big time trade. I want to take a look at all 32 selections and mock the mock.
Jets, Jets, Jets!
All right, welcome in. I'm excited to get into this. Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft 3.0. He has the Jets making a big time trade, and I want to get into it. I want to look at all 32 picks, and I want to give you my analysis on this. Why do we focus in on Daniel Jeremiah's drafts? As Jet fans, it's because him and Joe Douglas, the Jets GM, are good buddies. They're good buddies, so maybe there's a little bit of an insight or an analysis or something that he can provide that other mock drafts maybe cannot provide. So I'm excited to get into this one. If you guys haven't done so already and you want to get in on the mock draft contest, it's totally free. You can scan the QR code or you can click the link in the description down below. We use an app called Mockout, really cool, grades points based on players going in the first round. If you pick the correct team, you can predict trades, things of that nature. Lots of fun. But let's hop in to this mock draft. At number 1 overall, he has Caleb Williams going to the Chicago Bears. We see this basically in every mock draft. It feels like it's basically a lock for him to go number 1. I'm still leery on the kind of attitude that Caleb Williams had at the combine. Does that translate into an NFL locker room? Either way, he's going to have a ton of weapons over in Chicago. I think this makes a lot of sense. He says the Bears have cleared the way, trading Justin Fields. I'd be stunned if it isn't the number 1 choice. They've built up an outstanding supporting cast around him. So obviously the movement of Justin Fields opened the way for a quarterback. They're not going to trade out of this pick at this point. They'll just take whoever they deem as the best quarterback, and Caleb Williams seems to have the talent that everyone's been talking about all offseason. At number 2, the Commanders are taking Drake May, quarterback out of UNC. Daniel Jeremiah had him in the last mock draft also taking Drake May, but they still had Sam Howell under contract, and they were kind of comparing how they both went to UNC, and he wanted to help groom Drake May. It was whatever. They get their top signal caller. This makes a lot of sense. Air raid offense with Cliff Kingsbury, air raid offense down at UNC. I think this pick makes a lot of sense for them. Quarterback with the new regime. Number 3, we got the New England Patriots selecting quarterback Jayden Daniels, who is probably my favorite quarterback in this draft. The size, the speed, the arm strength, really, really fun to watch. I think he benefited a little bit from having, obviously Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., 2 first-round wide receivers that we'll see come off the board here in a little bit. Down at LSU, he does need to make sure he doesn't take the shots that he took at LSU. He is not a very big quarterback at 210 pounds. For that size frame, you would like to see him gain maybe a little bit more weight or at least avoid the hits. Be a little bit more like Lamar Jackson. Slide, get out of bounds, don't take the big shots, live to fight another day. But I do like this selection for the New England Patriots. I just don't like it for our New York Jets. Now, this is something that I've been predicting at number 4 ever since the Vikings made their trade, and that is the Vikings coming up to number 4 for J.J. McCarthy. And I think the rationale here, and people might say, hey, this is far too high for J.J. McCarthy. Well, the Giants are projected to potentially take him at number 6. So they're going to look at possibly trading up. Then the Chargers, I've already said, they are open for business. They'd be looking to move around. Now, this is before they lost Mike Williams and before they lost Keenan Allen. So maybe there's a situation where they're less likely to trade out, knowing that there's going to be a good wide receiver for them. Marvin Harrison Jr. would be the top option on the board for the Chargers here, but they slide back. And I think, not the Chargers, the Cardinals. Could they get the top wide receiver on the board? They decide to move back here. And I think when I'm thinking about the trade up and why the Chargers would want to move back, it's obviously the Giants could take a quarterback at 6. If the Chargers are looking to move down, that means the Broncos and the Raiders are both kind of eliminated from that spot to trade up to. So those 2 teams are going to have to come up to number 4 anyway. So I think the Vikings have to come up to number 4 to get their quarterback, or they risk the Broncos or the Raiders possibly coming all the way up here. Now they have the 2 first-round picks, and the Cardinals trade down a little bit here. They can get a receiver. This is a really loaded wide receiver class. J.J. McCarthy, going to be the new Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. I think this is a really cool pick. And it sucks because it's a little bit higher. If you had asked me this 2 months ago, I would have said J.J. McCarthy, tail end of the first round, maybe second-round quarterback. I'd be a little surprised if he went this high. But seeing how all these quarterbacks have really elevated their stock since the combine, this does make sense to me. 25-1 as a starter. Very clean from the pocket, but he doesn't run a very pass-centric offense. That was very focused on the running game over in Michigan. So can he operate, with a little more focus on him in the offense? But either way, I think this is a good move for the Vikings. You got to go up and get your signal caller, so solve the most important position on the field. At number 5, he is the Jets trading up. He is the Jets trading up number 5 to get Marvin Harrison Jr. When I saw this, It blew my damn mind. And then I started thinking about it because as soon as the Jets signed or traded for Morgan Moses and signed Tyron Smith, I'm like, okay, I don't know if they're going to take a tackle that you primarily want to see not take a single snap this entire season. I feel like they may want to go with a player that's going to impact them immediately right now. And the Jets don't have a number 2 wide receiver right now. Now, the Jets are meeting with Mike Williams, so maybe there's a situation where they sign him and this pick becomes maybe a little less likely of a trade up. The value from going from pick 10 to pick number 5 is about 400 points. So you're talking a second round pick, a mid-second round pick. The Jets don't have a second round pick. Daniel Jeremiah does go into it saying that the Jets gave up a 2025 second round pick. And if you know anything about the trade value chart, there's a common known quality, I guess, of future first-round picks being valued as a second-round pick and second-round picks being valued as a third-round pick. So in a sense, the Jets gave up, unless there's another pick that he's not mentioning in his mock draft, if it was just a 2025 second-round pick, this is a home run option for the New York Jets to come all the way up and get Marvin Harrison Jr. He is the most pro-ready wide receiver, the most polished. I think he has the highest floor of any of the receivers coming out, and he is arguably player 1 or player 2 on a lot of big boards across the country here. 6'4", perfect size, perfect speed, elite hands. You guys know I love the lineage. Drafting receivers with NFL lineage is always a really smart play because you have that training from birth on how to eat, how to go about training, all these different things. I would love this. This would be a wild trade up for the New York Jets, and it's not one that I would have expected us to do. I think the Jets are looking more for like a guard tackle insurance policy, maybe in the second round or in a trade down scenario. I could see the Jets sitting and waiting for a wide receiver, but if you deem wide receiver as your number 1 need across the board, and you're going all in for the next 2 years for a Super Bowl, maybe it's just worth it to go up and get the Ohio State wide receiver. I think this would be absolutely wild if the New York Jets did this, especially for this price. If that's all it costs to do it, you'd be silly not to. And I'm expecting the Jets to make some type of big-time trade, maybe for a Brandon Ayuk or something along those lines, but this gets you the big-time trade with the wide receiver you need at the size profile you need to complement Garrett Wilson, along with a 5-year cheap contract. So I really do like this move for the New York Jets for this particular price. Now, the New York Giants at number 6, they go with Malik Neighbors. I think this makes a lot of sense. I do think the top 5 picks are kind of set in stone, and I would even say the top 6 picks, because this is where I sort of feel it's going to be. And I don't know if it's going to be in this order necessarily or these particular teams, but I think these are the first 6 players off the board. I really like Malik Neighbors. I think he goes number 1 in terms of wide receivers in any other draft that doesn't have Marvin Harrison Jr. in it. 1,500 yards, 14 touchdowns. The Giants kind of need to see what they have in Daniel Jones. This is a make or break year for them. And with all the quarterbacks off the board here, maybe they consider trading up for one in the back end of the first round. I like Penix for them back end of the first round, honestly. I think that would make a lot of sense if he falls that far, maybe a Bo Nix if they want to go that route. But I like top weapon for the Giants at the beginning part of the first round here. At number 7, we see the Titans go with Joe Alt, the offensive tackle out of Notre Dame. Really like this move for them. I would have loved him to fall to the New York Jets. And honestly, if the Jets were trading up to 5, I think I might have thought that they were going after Joe Alt because Tyron Smith is only on a 1-year contract. This is the best tackle in the draft coming out, and the Jets are going to have some injury concerns anyway. But it makes a lot of sense here for the Titans. They just moved on from Andre Dillard. They want to protect their young signal caller. Joe Alt is a great pick here at 6'8", and this guy moves like a gazelle at 5'5", 5.05. 40 speed for that height is bonkers. So Joe Alt comes off the board to the Titans. At number 8, the Falcons select the best defensive player on the board, and that's Dallas Turner, the edge from Alabama. I really like this selection for them. They got Kirk Cousins. The offensive side of the ball is taken care of. You've got Pitts, you've got Robinson, you've got Drake London. Offense, totally fine. Defense needs some addressing. And Raheem Morris being a defensive coach, I think he sets the tone with an edge rusher that can also cover running backs and tight ends out of the backfield. I think this makes a lot of sense for them. At number 9, I was a little surprised to see Rome Odunze come off the board here with the trade for Keenan Allen right now. Now, Keenan Allen is only on a 1-year, $23 million contract. Do the Bears say, hey, we're going to do the Cincinnati Bengals treatment? We are absolutely going to put as many weapons around Caleb Williams as we possibly can, and Rome Odunze is a number 1 in contested catch type player. He is a number 1 deep ball catcher, and maybe a quarterback in Caleb Williams who, I don't know, might be a little more off script. Maybe that big catch radius that Rome Odunze provides is going to be really good here. I like Odunze a lot. I would have hoped that he fell to the Jets at 10. So in my mind, if you're missing out on the top 3 wide receivers, if you're the Jets and you think this is how the board's going to fall, do they actually try to move up to get a receiver that they want anyway? Now, the other option I see for the Bears, I could see them go edge rusher. I could also see them go with like a Brock Bowers. I feel like maybe spreading some of the love of the weapons around might go, a long way. But Rome Odunze here, I can't get upset with because obviously Allen is on that 1-year contract. So you surround Caleb with a ton of weapons. Number 10, the Chargers pick up their right tackle of the future, 𝐂𝐿𝐳 Funga out of Oregon State. I like this pick a lot for them, and I know a lot of Chargers fans are thinking, hey, wide receiver, why aren't we going wide receiver? We just got rid of Keenan Allen. We just got rid of Mike Williams. Why are we taking a right tackle? Well, Jim Harbaugh wants to run the ball in LA, and 𝐂𝐿𝐳 Funga is absolutely the most road-grading, pro-ready player on the offensive line immediately. And he might start at right guard, but he's ultimately going to be the right tackle there in LA. I really like him. This is a popular pick for New York Jet fans, but with the Jets trading up, obviously, they're not going with 𝐂𝐿𝐳 Funga here. Team captain, violent son of a batch of cookies, as I like to call him. Like this pick for the Chargers here. I think it gives them better value picking this at 10 than going with him at number 5, if that's where they were thinking about going. So I think this is a smart trade for the Chargers. At number 11, this is the Cardinals. This is from the move back from number 4 with the Vikings. They get the edge rusher, Jared Verse out of FSU. I think this makes a lot of sense for them. Pick up some defensive pieces to help out your offense. Look, Jared Verse is one of those players. You could probably flip-flop him and Dallas Turner as who you like better in this draft. And I see, I've pretty much had Verse penciled in at the 11 pick anyway for the Vikings up until the trade with the Texans where they now have 2 first-round picks, and it seems obvious that they're going to come up for a quarterback. But I like this. I like this here for the Cardinals. I think it makes a lot of sense for them. Broncos, number 12. Daniel Jeremiah says this is a best player available type pick for the Broncos and says they could use him a lot like Michael Thomas was utilized in New Orleans with Sean Payton. This could be a situation where, they just can't find a quarterback right now, or maybe they feel better punting a year on a quarterback, eating all the dead cap from Russell Wilson, maybe see what you have with Stidham on the roster. I don't know. I still think there's an opportunity for Zach to end up in Denver at some point just because of the inability of the Broncos probably to trade up. They don't have a second-round pick this year. I think it's going to be difficult for them to overcome some of the assets that other teams around them are going to have. And Brock Bowers is an elite weapon. This is absolutely an interesting play for them. I don't know. He's like a unicorn, right? Like he has elite speed, or at least really, really good speed for a tight end. He's not the crazy size that you'd like to see necessarily, but I would love to see him utilized in a Sean Payton offense. I think that would be a lot of fun to see. A lot of Jet fans really like Brock Bowers, and the knock on that particular selection is Nathaniel Hackett not being as creative as a Sean Payton could possibly be with him. So I like that fit for the Broncos. At number 13, the Raiders make a move for a quarterback, and they're going with Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington, and I really like Michael Penix. If I'm honest, Michael Penix is my second favorite quarterback in this draft, and it's not to say that I would take him number 2 overall or anything along those lines. I feel like, in my mind, value-wise, I thought Penix would go second round, maybe top end of back end of the first round, where a team wants to get that 5th-year option for a contract. I actually have him as the Giants quarterback in a trade-up. I think he would fit really well with Daboll in New York. But the Raiders make a move here. Now, I think they are the only other team that I could see possibly coming up maybe to the 3 pick and overpaying to go get a Jaden Daniels, because there's that connection with Antonio Pierce and Jaden Daniels from his time in Arizona State. So could there be a trade-up to that spot if there is a crazy overpay by the Raiders? Obviously, they'd have to overcompensate compared to whatever the Vikings would be trying to give up to go get their quarterback. But if they're looking at different players, then maybe this makes a lot of sense. But Penix, at number 13, this is way higher than I thought. He's a very smart quarterback. It seems like he knows what he's looking at pre-snap and post-snap. He's not a running style quarterback. For as kind of mobile as he sort of is, or maybe elusive in the pocket. Maybe that's what the way I should probably put it. I would have figured he'd have more rushing yards on his docket, but the guy's got a cannon for an arm. He can hit all 3 levels of the offense. You can hit. He had Rome Odunze and he had Jalen Polk as his receivers. Very, very good receivers. Very, I would say mediocre Pac-12 overall. Big knock on him is the injuries. Now, I think he would have gone top 10 if he didn't have 2 ACL injuries, didn't have a surgically repaired throwing shoulder. He had 4 season-ending injuries And in his time, I think, was it only in Indiana? I think it was only in Indiana. He's been healthy the last 2 years in Washington. So this is the player that I think a lot of people expect to really boom at the next level as long as he stays healthy. The health is just really the biggest question mark here. And for the Raiders, roll the dice. Why not? Your team's loaded. You got Gardner Minshew to push Aiden O'Connell. Maybe one of those guys starts for a year and you give Penix a little bit of time to kind of learn. I like this pick for the Raiders. The other option I could see them going with would be an offensive tackle because they did lose 𝐒𝐿𝐼 to the Giants this past offseason. So something to keep in mind. Number 14, he has the Saints going with Olu Fashanu, the left tackle out of Penn State. This would be replacing, is it Trevor Penning is their left tackle, I believe. So maybe they don't love that so much. Maybe he can kick inside. I don't know. Olu Fashanu, second best left tackle in the draft. A lot of Jet fans had him like figured to go to them at one point. At one point, I didn't think there would be, the top 2 tackles would be available for the Jets at number 2, and now we're talking about one of the tackles falling all the way to 14. So little bit of dramatics from the Jet fans and myself early on here. But Fashanu coming off the board, known as a pass blocker, more so than a run blocker. Saints get a really good player here. Only 5 career penalties to his name. Very disciplined. I think you're looking at a 10-year starter with Olu Fashanu on the left-hand side. The Colts at number 15 get a cornerback, top cornerback off the board. Quinyon Mitchell blew up the combine, blew up the Senior Bowl. This guy has been rising up draft boards. I do think he's going to ultimately end up being the top cornerback taken, and the Colts make perfect sense here. Maybe there's a situation where they want to leapfrog a few teams that might be considering cornerback in front of them and then trade down with the Jets, possibly. Maybe the Jets could pick something up here. I don't know. This is a good move for them overall. 2,200 snaps from Quinyon Mitchell. Absolutely freak athletic play style and just raw talent. And basically everyone that he went up against at the Senior Bowl, he dominated. So I'm not concerned with the, maybe the strength of schedule that he may have faced. He was clocked at 23.5 miles an hour. Stupid fast. By comparison, Tyreek Hill runs 22 miles an hour. Looney Tunes there from the Colts. The Seahawks taking Troy Fautanu. Hope I pronounced that name correctly this time. I had a bunch of people in the comments yelling at me on my pronunciation last time. Hopefully I got it right. Left tackle out of Washington. Seattle figures to play him at guard. Now his offensive line coach from college is now the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator. So this pick could make a whole lot of sense. Guard tackle flexibility. I actually like this pick for the New York Jets if we were to trade down because of his guard tackle flexibility would give you a little bit of insurance for like an AVT and for a Tyron Smith. But the Seahawks get a really nice player here. His arms measured longer than I would have thought. 34-inch length is usually what you want for a tackle, and a lot of people expected his arms to measure just a little bit short of that and kind of, transition him to guard. But now that he's hit that 34-inch mark, people are like, oh, this guy could play tackle. This is basically an AVT of this draft, if you want to think of it this way. And this is a great player for the Seahawks to take here. Number 17, Jaguars take Terrion Arnold, the corner out of Alabama. Basically, I've seen them go with receiver or with cornerback in this draft. I think the first round value is more cornerback here. Obviously, second one off the board compared to wide receiver number 4. They just lost Calvin Ridley. I like this pick for them. I think you can argue Terrion Arnold's the best corner in this draft. There's like the whole cornerback class, at least like the top 4, are kind of in this weird flux of whichever one sort of fits your needs best. So Jacksonville getting a top corner here at 17, I think is very, very good. Good in press man, good in zone, good run defender. Only 7 penalties over the course of 2 years, so it doesn't really put his team in bad positions either. Number 18, you got the Bengals selecting J.C. Latham, right tackle out of Alabama. Now, as of recording this video, they did just sign Trent Brown. I don't know how long the contract is, so if it's not a very long contract, you would figure this would be a replacement piece for that. If it is a longer contract, then maybe this pick doesn't make much sense at this particular point in time. But I like J.C. Latham a lot. I would have no issues if the Jets decided to make that selection at number 10. This guy figures to be a tree trunk over on the right-hand side. This guy's got like thighs that are like enormous. Cannons, 21 career penalties. That's the knock on him during his time in Alabama. You don't want to see the penalties because then you're going backwards as an offensive tackle. You don't want to hear your name called, but he was first team all SEC, and he did have the hardest strength of schedule of all the offensive linemen that we kind of looked at in the first round here. So J.C. Latham, I'm totally fine with this. I think this selection here aligns a little bit better with the value that comes with J.C. Latham as opposed to selecting him a little bit higher at like 10. But I could see him as high as the Chargers pick, honestly, if they were to trade down And I think Kuiper had Latham at number 5 at one point too. So I think that could make a lot of sense. J.C. Latham coming off the board. Number 19, you have the Rams selecting a defensive juggernaut in Laiatu Latu. This guy would go much higher if it were not for his neck injury that he sustained in 2019, nearly ended his career, missed 2 seasons because of it, and he is really, really good off the edge. Now, the Rams did just lose Aaron Donald to retirement, so it would make sense to get someone on that defensive line to send a message this season that this is still a strength of this team, and I like this selection here for the LA Rams. At number 20, you have the Steelers looking to bookend their tackles. They obviously got Broderick Jones 1 pick in front of the Jets last year. They go out and they get Tyler Guyton, the right tackle from Oklahoma. Figure to play him over on the left-hand side. This guy has elite measurables. NFL guys love the measurables. Arm length, height, size, weight, everything. This guy has it all and projects really well. His knock is really just not a lot of reps in college. If you saw more reps, he would go much higher than this. And I think you would argue maybe even Amarius Mims here. Amarius Mims from Georgia, same sort of knocks against him, limited snaps, maybe a little more injury prone or banged up, I guess, towards the last part of his career in Georgia. But either way, I like this pick for the Steelers, and I think it gives them a really strong offensive line moving forward with whether it be Justin Fields or, Russell Wilson. So big time player with Tyler Guyton going to the Steelers. At number 21, the Dolphins select Graham Barton. And this pick for me, I do think is going to be interior offensive line or offensive line just in general. And with the loss of Robert Hunt, $100 million contract going to the Panthers, Looney Tunes, that's absolutely insane. Connor Williams having the ACL injury. I believe it was ACL, or was it Achilles? Whatever it was. He's knocked out for basically a nice chunk of this season as well. Having a player like a Graham Barton that can play literally 5 positions across the offensive line is very attractive. Now, I would argue if I were the Dolphins here, I would probably go with Jackson Powers-Johnson over Graham Barton, but I might be splitting hairs a little bit. Maybe they want that tackle flexibility as well. Either way, not too shabby. He has 22 career penalties over the course of 4 years. So what is that? I guess 5.5 penalties per season. I don't know if that's not too bad. At least in NFL terms, most guys are around like 8 to 10 on a season. But I guess there's fewer games, so maybe there's a knock there. I don't know. Either way, very good positional flexibility, and maybe this guy, gives them some much needed depth on that offensive line. Number 22, the Eagles. Now, this is the team that I think if the Jets want to trade back, this is where I think the Jets would have to fall to, realistically. The Eagles getting Nate Wiggins, cornerback from Clemson. He may have been the top cornerback in this class. He did tweak, I believe it was a hamstring at the combine when he was running his 40. He only ran 140 of his 2, and maybe that caused him to fall a little bit. Maybe teams were just like, hey, we're going to go with the guys that didn't get injured at the combine. Eagles secondary has been atrocious. If they wanted to come up, since they have multiple second-round picks, I think they have 2 third-round picks as well. If that's the case and they want to come all the way up to number 10 and the Jets want to fall back and then maybe feel like they can get a good wide receiver here, Brian Thomas Jr. still available on the board. You have, some pretty decent offensive tackles here. Maybe you go with an Amarius Mims if you wanted to slide back while also picking up a player in the second round. But either way, Eagles get a very good cornerback here in Nate Wiggins, and I think they should be really happy at number 22 getting that. Number 23, Cardinals finally get their wide receiver. They traded out at number 4 with the who am I talking about? With the Minnesota Vikings. So this is the trade they picked up that selection with, I believe, right? Or is this the Texans one? This is the Texans pick. 6'3" wide receiver, 4.3 speed, stupid fast, lots of touchdowns, big explosion of a year this season from Brian Thomas Jr. I like this player for them. And in a trade down, I'll be honest, this has just as much boom potential as any wide receiver in the draft. Marvin Harrison Jr. to me is just very, very high floor. And I think the Cardinals have maybe the luxury of being able to select multiple good players while having the explosive nature of a Brian Thomas Jr., while having maybe a little bit more risk of a bottom out floor here. But I really like this. I'm a big fan of Brian Thomas Jr. He's actually one of my top wide receivers I would want the Jets to target in a trade down, as you heard me mention on the previous pick. So Cardinals get Brian Thomas Jr. here. I really like that. Cowboys making an interior offensive lineman selection. I really like this for them. Jackson Powers-Johnson, the center out of Oregon, only played 1 year as a center. And just fascinating to see just how good he was able to perform in that 1 year. Now, obviously, he's played guard, so he's got positional flexibility no matter where you want to utilize him on the offensive line. Dominated the Senior Bowl. We had our guys for Talking Jets down there. They were just saying, like, this guy might be the best offensive lineman in the draft. If the Jets needed an interior offensive lineman, this is the player that you'd want to go with. 10 career penalties overall, so you can't be upset. He won the Remington Trophy for best center in the country this past year. So Cowboys selecting a center, I like that a whole lot there. Number 25, the Packers get their Broderick Jones replacement in Amarius Mims, the right tackle from Georgia. Now, they project that he could go to either left-hand side or right-hand side. Not a crazy ton of snaps in college, like I mentioned with Guyton, very similar in that respect, but enormous size, really good speed. One penalty in 30 games, so he doesn't put you in bad situations. I really like Amarius Mims. And at the beginning of the offseason, I had him as one of the players I would take a look at for the New York Jets in a trade down. 5-star recruit going into college. I think when top performers perform at top-level schools, at top-level programs, it just makes a lot of sense. And the Packers get a really, really good tackle here in Amarius Mims. The Buccaneers looking for a replacement for Shaq Barrett. Now that he is no longer a Buck, they select Darius Robinson, the versatile defensive lineman out of Missouri. Now this guy can play inside, he can play outside. He had 1,500 career snaps over 5 years, 800 snaps at D tackle, 630 snaps at edge. 42 pressures, 9 sacks, 27 stops. He was first team all SEC. This guy's stock is absolutely flying up draft boards since the Senior Bowl. I think this is a really good selection here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. At number 27, the Cardinals select their defensive side of the ball. And now this could also be like, you could kind of flip-flop these two picks as well. Byron Murphy, the second defensive tackle out of Texas, goes to the Cardinals. So the Cardinals add 3 elite players. And honestly, Byron Murphy is someone that I've seen mocked as high as like the early teens, or like even a little bit above that, like to the Broncos and to the Vikings prior to them, looking to come up for a quarterback. But getting this value here at 27, I think makes a crazy ton of sense. Really explosive first step, can get all that pressure up the A gap. That is the fastest way to the quarterback, and to get them off balance immediately, I think is a really smart move. Cardinals rebuilding that defensive line with the exterior pass rusher, that's a weird way to say that, I guess, outside pass rusher in Jared Verse at pick number 11, and then they come back here with Byron Murphy on the interior. And number 28, the Bills go with the defensive lineman Jerzon Newton out of Illinois. Bills hemorrhaging a lot of players this offseason. They were very, very bad cap situation. Them going with a defensive lineman here is a little surprising. I've kind of penciled them in for offensive weapon, like a wide receiver, sort of replace a Gabe Davis. They did bring in Curtis Samuel as a slot option, and then Stefon Diggs, you figure, is probably still going to be there unless they shake something up and they wind up making a move, trading him. Then maybe this pick becomes wide receiver again. I guess they're going to need to stop defensive, they're going to have to stop the running game, right? Breece Hall is not going anywhere anytime soon for the New York Jets. Miami loves running the ball down there, so it makes sense from that perspective. Then you got the Patriots, who just drafted Jaden Daniels. They figure to run the ball a whole heck of a lot up in New England. I think adding someone on the interior is more of a reflection of the rest of the division and the way they're kind of going than maybe I would have otherwise thought. I would have thought a weapon here. Number 29, we've got the Lions selecting Kool-Aid McKinstry, the cornerback, potentially maybe a little bit of safety from the Alabama Crimson Tide. They match him up with Brian Branch, who was a former first-round pick. Was it last year or 2 years ago? Brian Branch. Exciting player. You could argue this guy could go very much higher in the draft, one of those cornerbacks that are all kind of lumped together here in the first round. I really like him. He's first-team All-Pro in 2023 and 2022. Great lateral agility, fluid hips, good in press man, good tackling. Deep ball coverage, I guess, is a little lacking from what the scouting reports I've seen. He allows less than 50% completion percentage when targeted, so really nice to see that. No one gets the ball when you're covered by Kool-Aid. Number 30, you got the Ravens coming in, selecting cornerback/safety Cooper DeJean out of Iowa. Again, cornerback safety. I've seen this guy, I think PFF has him as high as, what is it? Oh, they have him at number 8. I've seen him in mock drafts like top 10 to the Falcons. I've seen him go much earlier than this. So to get him at number 30 for the Ravens is absolutely huge. They wind up getting a bunch of guys from Iowa. I'm pretty sure, Linderbaum was from Iowa. I think they have a few other players that are off the top of my head right now. But number 14 on Bruce Philbin's freak list, zone coverage, man coverage. This guy is elite. Definitely like the speed, recovery speed on him as well, and great positional flexibility. Cornerback, safety, special teams, going to provide you a good player across multiple layers of your team. Ravens get another good player, tail end of the draft. 31, 49ers come in, select edge rusher. Chop Robinson had a blazing fast 40 at the combine, good at covering running backs and tight ends. 10 sacks, 87 pressures, had 1,000 snaps at edge for the Nittany Lions. Yeah, I guess their argument is not so great run defense. Now, obviously, they did bring in, was it Leonard Floyd? I think they brought in Leonard Floyd on a lower end contract. They just, signed a monster deal with Nick Bosa. So this is going to be a very deep defensive line group for the 49ers. And I guess in this sort of situation, maybe they don't move a Brandon Ayuk, so they're not looking wide receiver. I would think that's maybe another position they could look to address here in a move down. 49ers get a good player in Chop Robinson. Number 32, Chiefs going with a wide receiver. Some people think that Xavier Worthy should be the first receiver off the board because of his blazing 40-time record-setting 4.21, but his teammate, Adonai Mitchell, A.D. Mitchell, going off the board here. He provides a little bit more size at 6 foot. I think he's 6'3", I think is what he measured in at the combine. 1,500 snaps at wide receiver. He spent 87% of the time out wide, 13% in the slot. If you can give this guy free releases, I mean, this guy feels very CeeDee Lamb-y to me. I don't know if that's like a weird way to say that, but I very much like A.D. Mitchell. If he were to fall into the second round, I think that would be one of the players that a lot of teams are looking to come up to the top of the first round to try and get. This provides you a little bit more flexibility from a receiver dynamic. And with the signing of Hollywood Brown, 1 year, $11 million, he's only going to be there briefly, but at least get someone to complement him. Go for that Super Bowl run with Patrick Mahomes. Give him all the weapons. I think it makes a ton of sense here. Boys and girls, let me know what your thoughts of this mock draft were. Daniel Jeremiah 3.0. Comments in the description down below. Also, don't forget, if you want to come to the Jets, Talking Jets draft party, first night of the NFL draft, going to be a lot of fun. Main event down on Long Island. We're going to be hosting it. I'll leave the tickets in the description down below as well as in the pinned comment. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets. Thank you guys so much for hitting the like and subscribe button on these videos. It goes a long way towards growing the channel. And then occasionally I get sponsors like this. So if you want to help support the sponsor of the channel, or maybe just get yourself some cool gear or some good discounts, you can click the link in the description down below. Today's sponsor, 𝐶𝐿, is going to give you 25% off your order using promo code JetsTalk. Link in the description down below. They've got gummies, THC syrup, THC seltzers. I just discovered these things. They are incredible. As someone who has been trying to cut down a little bit of their alcohol consumption and not, maybe feel as crummy the next day, this has been a godsend for me. Keep me nice and calm, cool, and collected, especially with all the hurdles that our Jets throw our way and all the headaches that we got to deal with as fans. So if you guys want to help support the channel, maybe get yourself a little bit of a discount as well. Support the sponsor of the channel, 𝐀𝐿. Thank you so much for watching the show.